The hardest part often isn't just what the narcissistic person does. One of the hardest parts is watching everyone else pretend that they don't see it, or even worse, watching them defend it. If you're new here, welcome in. This is a place where we make sense of confusing family dynamics, toxic relationships, narcissistic behaviors, and the invisible wounds that they leave behind. Understanding what happened is often the first step toward healing from it. One of the biggest myths about narcissistic abuse is that it's just about one abusive person and one victim. But in reality, it's often an entire system. And once you understand the system, so many things that used to feel impossible to explain suddenly start making sense. A common question that survivors ask themselves is, why didn't anyone stop them? It's such a natural question. You're thinking, my whole family saw what was happening. My coworkers saw how they treated me. Our friends heard the comments. So why didn't anyone say anything? The answer usually isn't as simple as people are just cruel. Although sometimes people are just cruel. But often, the people are protecting the stability of the toxic system. Let me explain. Imagine a family where one person has explosive anger. Everyone knows it. Dad knows it, mom knows it, the siblings know it, even the grandchildren and the grandparents know it. So nobody says certain things around that person because everyone already knows what will happen. You can't disagree with them. You can't ask about certain topics. You can't bring up the thing they did last year or last week. And everyone learns the rules. But nobody calls them rules. They just become normal. People start saying things like, that's just how she is, don't poke the bear, or you know how he gets. And my favorite, it's just easier if we let it go. The phrases might sound harmless, but underneath them is something much more insidious. They're telling everyone else to change so that one person never has to. Think about that. An entire family slowly reorganizes itself around one person's emotional instability. Nobody's expecting the unstable person to learn emotional regulation. Instead, everyone else is expected to become experts at emotional management. But that's backwards. In healthy relationships, each person is responsible for managing their own emotions. But in dysfunctional systems, everyone becomes responsible for managing one person's emotions. And eventually, that doesn't even feel strange anymore. It becomes the culture. Children grow up believing this is just what families do. People begin believing that that's what love looks like. Friends start believing that this is just part of maintaining relationships. And that's how dysfunctional systems survive. Not because everyone agrees with them, because everyone adapts to them. And there's another reason these systems are so difficult to challenge. Most people don't experience the narcissistic person in the same way. This is something that so many survivors struggle with. They'll try to tell people, but you don't know what they're really like. And then the other people respond with things like, but they've always been nice to me. And here's the thing. Both people are telling the truth. The narcissistic person often presents different versions of themselves to different audiences. Their boss might see someone who's hardworking. The neighbors might see someone who's generous. The friends might see someone who's funny. And the extended family sees someone charming and charismatic. But behind closed doors, their spouse or children sees someone completely different. Their scapegoat sees someone completely different. And then when the survivor finally tells their story, everyone compares it to their own experience. And since it doesn't usually match, they assume that the survivor must be exaggerating. That's one of the loneliest parts of hidden abuse. You aren't just trying to heal from what happened. You're trying to convince people that it even happened at all. But there's a lot more that keeps these systems going. There's intermittent reinforcement. Sometimes the narcissistic person is wonderful. They tell jokes and buy gifts and they're generous and attentive. And then everything changes. People so often ask, why didn't you just leave? Well, intermittent reinforcement is one reason. We don't make decisions based only on the worst moments. We also remember the best ones. The good moments create hope, and hope is incredibly powerful. You start believing that maybe this time things will be different. Maybe this time they're really changing. Maybe I finally figured out what they need. But hope isn't weakness. It's one of the strongest forces in psychology. Unfortunately, it's also one of the easiest things for manipulative people to exploit. Then there are the ones we call the flying monkeys. Many of them don't even realize the role they're playing, but some certainly do. The narcissist will tell them, I don't know what's gotten into her. I've tried everything. I guess I can't do anything right. She's so difficult. And then if you ever get a chance to tell your side, an entire narrative has already been built about you. There are many roles in these systems. There's the peacemaker. They're not trying to defend abuse. They're just trying to stop conflict. But unfortunately, the easiest way to stop conflict is almost always to ask the reasonable person to give in. Think about it. If one person explodes every time they don't get their way, and another person is kind, thoughtful, emotionally mature, who do you think's going to get asked to compromise? It's almost always the emotionally healthy one. People will tell you to just apologize and be the bigger person. And they think it sounds wise. But over time, it teaches one person that they never have to change. And it teaches other people that having needs creates problems. That's not peace. Real peace requires accountability. Silence isn't peace. Avoiding conflict isn't peace. Walking on eggshells is not peace. It is simply the absence of visible conflict. The dysfunction is still there. It's just hiding underground. And holy moly, when someone finally says, I'm done, the system doesn't panic because the narcissist is abusive. They panic because the system is changing. Every role suddenly has to shift. The peacemaker doesn't know who to calm down. The rescuer doesn't know who to rescue. The enabler has to face some really uncomfortable truths. The golden child might lose their special status. And the scapegoat stops carrying everyone else's blame. So then everything begins to reorganize. And that's why speaking the truth often creates so much resistance. Truth leads to change. They think change is dangerous. The system wasn't built to support honesty. It was built to maintain stability, even if that stability comes at one person's expense. If you've spent years wondering, why didn't anyone help me? Know this. If they adapted to dysfunction, that doesn't make it healthy. If they normalized abuse, that doesn't make it normal. And if they chose to stay silent, that doesn't make your experience any less real. Sometimes people protect the narcissist because they're afraid. Sometimes they do it because they've also been manipulated. Sometimes it's because they've spent decades surviving the exact same system you are. And sometimes it's because acknowledging the truth would force them to question their own lives and their own choices. So they protect the story instead. So stop asking, why couldn't they see it? And start asking, what if I was seeing it clearly all along? Because here's the thing. Dysfunctional systems don't usually reject the person who's causing the dysfunction. They reject the person who's pointing it out. And once you understand that, that's often the moment that people stop feeling like they are crazy. Not because anything around them really changed, because they finally stopped asking the system for permission to trust what they had been seeing all along.